Welcome to the Real Refined Podcast, where faith and the mind meet. I'm your host, Bree, and I'm your host, Tiara. Tap in.
Hello, Real Refined fam. How y'all doing?
Hey, y'all.
We back with another one.
Another one. Can we get into this bob? Let's get into it. The headphones
Do
trying to
do
hate on me a
do
little bit, but the bob
do the
is
shake. Do the shake.
Lorena Bob the Builder.
I swear, every time I say another one, it just gives me. I tap into like a little baby DJ Khaled. Another one.
Because we're going to
Oh
keep going,
man.
okay?
Oh right, because we gonna keep doing it. So y'all, welcome back to another episode. I'm super excited to talk about this because we are going to be talking about the wilderness today. Because how many of y'all have been in the wilderness?
How
So
many of y'all
we're
in one right now?
okay. And understanding that it's going to happen more than once, but this conversation, all of our conversations are real. So, what we're going to discuss, and I'm super excited to jump in, is that the wilderness happens more than once. Our experiences in the wilderness, what that walk looks like, what it looks like afterwards, what the wilderness even is. Because can we
Yeah.
just talk about that? A lot of us think that the wilderness is this punishment that, oh my goodness, God, how could you put me in this place of isolation, feeling alone and depression and anxiety and all these other things that happen in that place, not understanding that it's actually a place where we're being refined. And I didn't understand that whenever I went through that. So, T, I'm going to start with you. What has your wilderness looked like? And I'm sure you've been there more than once, but can you just give me and the people just a little backstory of your understanding of the wilderness and your walk in that?
Oh my gosh. I've definitely been through the wilderness more than once. Um, the wilderness, and I think it's important for us to define that, right? The wilderness, if you think about an actual wilderness, it is a dry place. It is a place that is isolated. It is a place that is without resources, and it is a place of extreme discomfort. It does not feel good, and you feel like you have very limited means to get comfortable in the wilderness. And so my times in the wilderness have been just that. Um, Feeling very much alone, and I have a very great support system. That's one of the things that even especially lately I've really been thankful for. But even when you have a support system, sometimes when you're going through stuff, those people that love you still can't really do anything about it. That's where the loneliness sets in. It doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have any friends or, people have turned their backs on you. It's just this is something that you have to walk through. They can pray for you, they can pray with you, they can talk to you about it, but the day to day getting up and walking through it, you have to be the one to do it. And so that's a big part of it. Also, just being in a place where you feel like I don't have everything that I need, or I don't have everything that I think I should have at this point, or I've experienced a great loss so that where I am now, I feel an extreme difference in like the state that I'm in now and the state that I was in. And there's really no explanation for why I lost it. It could be a job, it could be a relationship, it could be a financial hit, it could be a family member, a person. Um, but I've experienced a loss, or just I'm experiencing lack in some way, or I'm experiencing it as a lack, right?
Yeah.
Because God's grace is sufficient. We always have what we need in Him, but I'm experiencing where I feel like I ain't got what I need in order to continue. And I think the thing that makes it a wilderness is that it's things happening all at once to the point where you can't ignore it. Like it's a
Yeah.
significant change. It's a significant event where you're looking around like, how did I get here and what did I do wrong for me to end up here?
Yeah. I can relate. I would have to say that my wilderness a few times, but a lot of the time that I was in the wilderness season, there was like a major transition that was happening in my life. It
Yeah.
was such a weird time. So, hand raised because I'm a former people pleaser. I'm not going to count that as being a people pleaser now. Um, but whenever I was making that transition from people pleaser to boundaries, I felt very alone. I felt like, how am I in this place where I'm a natural giver? I'm a natural supporter. I'm all of these things to other people. And now, because I have stood up for myself, I am self loving myself more, taking better care of myself, saying more yes to me as opposed to saying no to me because I'm saying yes to everybody else. Why am I in this place where I'm just by myself?
Yeah.
Why? Why did this happen to me? And then in that moment, it was like, okay, so now it's just me and you, God. I was being a people pleaser instead of trying to please him, instead of going to God for everything and understanding that I'm not called to be this people pleaser and do all these things for everybody else first. I'm supposed to
Yeah.
be trying to please God first. Like that was a weird, I wouldn't say weird. It was a great realization, I would
Yeah.
say. But being in that place where it just had to be just me and him, and like you said, having a solid support system in that time, I had to shed off a lot of, I wouldn't call it dead weight because that's kind of rude. No, it was dead weight. It was. That was that time, that period where I had to do that. And it just felt like I'm just crumbling. And why me? So, and
Yeah.
then that's when all of the self doubt comes on, all the anxiety, feeling like you're not good enough, feeling you're not worthy to have these people around you. When really, I didn't lose them, they lost me.
Period.
Like, because it's hard, baby. It's a good heart. And no enemy, you can't have it. But I say all that to say that was the first time that I ever experienced a wilderness period. I was confused,
Yeah.
is just trying to figure out like, this is something good. Like, I'm supposed to be having boundaries. And when I read the book Boundaries, like, wait a minute, God, you want me to have boundaries too? It was that period of being in the wilderness is a confusing time, especially if you don't understand why. Why
Yeah.
are you here? So during that moment, it was, hey, God, why am I here? And because I was so bogged down mentally, I couldn't even hear the why. I didn't even understand the why. But
Yeah.
coming out of that, we think the first thought is punishment. Why are we
Yeah.
wired this way? The first thought is, you know what? We're wired that way because when you think about it as kids, when you are on punishment, you don't have no TV, you can't go outside, you don't have no friends, you can't go play with. You got your phone taken.
Yeah.
When we think of going into quote unquote isolation, it is punishment. You're on punishment. So I
Yeah.
think we have to begin to rewire our minds in that way, that when we're being by ourselves and we're being placed when it's just me and God, because you're not by yourself. When we're in that place, we have to begin to change our thought process behind it. You
Yeah.
know? So what do you
Yeah.
think?
No, I think that's so good. I actually was thinking about that as you were talking, right before you said it, that we think about, what did I do wrong? Am I on punishment? Like, what? God, you must be mad at me. And then we start to think about all of the things that we're we're still working on, and all of the areas where we're weak, and we start to say, well, maybe this is why God is doing this to me. And I think that it's very easy when we're in circumstances that are unpleasant for us to start to re-identify God in our lives, because I think a lot of us just I think there's a culture of people that believe that God is all about fulfilling our every desire, and that's not true. He's about fulfilling his will through us. And when we partner with him in doing that, one of the benefits of that is that he will, show us favor and meet some of our other needs. But when I think about the wilderness and think about how it feels like a punishment almost, I think about basic training. Um,
Woo.
and I don't know if any of y'all listening are veterans. If you are, thank you for your service. Bree and I are both Army veterans. And matter of fact, that's how we met each other. But if you are a veteran, everybody remembers basic training, right? And you said something so important too. You said you experienced the wilderness during transition, and um, drawing it back to the military and the Bible at the same time. If y'all can, I'm a little all over the place, but stay with me. In the Bible, when Israel was being rescued from Egypt and they were being taken to the land of milk and honey, this promised land, that had all of these great benefits that they were looking forward to, the place that they had to travel through or transition through to get there was the wilderness. And so, just like for us, when we went into basic training, a lot of people will refer like you're becoming a soldier, like you're not a civilian, you're not just a regular person anymore. Now you're becoming a soldier. That was a time of transition. And what we had to do was be isolated. We could only use our phones at certain times and only for a certain amount of time. There was no social media, there was no internet, there was no news. If something happened, I remember there was like a mass shooting. They had to gather us together and they decided what information they were going to give us because we were isolated. There was no way for us to know what was going on with the rest of the world. And I remember when I was in basic training, waiting on those letters to come in because that was really important during that time because
Yep.
you had no contact with your family or your people. And then we had to stay up, get up super early in the morning, do all of this crazy stuff, work out every day. I was in the best shape of my life when I was in basic training, you know,
Oh,
but it
same.
was because all of the distractions are removed. You're in that kind of environment where, and I remember my mind starting to change the longer that I was in there. And I don't know if you can relate. It was like, I have to do this. So let me just like get through this. Like whatever the day is gonna show, like it's just one more day that'll be behind me. And I slowly came out of that place of like complaining and being annoyed, where it was just like, okay, we got to get past this. And I think it's the same thing in our wilderness seasons in our lives. Like when you come out of this, you're going to be powerful. Jesus went through the wilderness right before he started his ministry, and he had
Yep.
so much power and authority. He'd overcome the temptations of the enemy while he was in the wilderness. And that's another part of it. When we're in here, what are those things that we're trying to cling to that give us those little moments of comfort, but that God is trying to work out of us while we're in there? So it really is a time of great transformation. It is a time where you do have limited means so that you can rely on God, like Bree said earlier, and not depend on your friends and not depend on your parents and not depend on your job. But it's God really showing who He is and putting you in a place where I've entrusted you to carry more. So in order for you to have the capacity to do that, I have to strip you for a season. And it doesn't
Mhm.
feel good. It feel like God, I feel played right now because I signed up
For
for like
something
the Israelites.
else.
We signed up for the promised land. So what is this? And a lot of times too, the wilderness comes after there's been some kind of promise. There's been some type of declaration over our life of who we're going to be. And you get excited because you're ready
Ooh.
for this elevation, and you don't realize we couldn't just walk into the army. We had to go through basic training. You can't just be a soldier because you want to be a soldier. You got to go through a process, baby. And God is a great life coach. He gonna make sure you go through the process so that you're ready, so that what you're walking into doesn't crush you, or so you don't mess people up because you have pride. When you walk into the next thing. I'm talking too much. You jump in here, Bree. What's up?
But hold on. I'm just like taken aback. I'm trying to contain myself
It's getting hot in
because
this thing.
it is getting hot in here. I'm like, don't even turn the fan on. See, like everything that you just spoke about is a mindset shift. Like, there's two parts to this, right? Ooh, okay, okay. All right, okay. Let me get together. So when you think about, I'm gonna first start with what you said about basic training. In the beginning, we're complaining like it's too hot, and depending on what you did basic at, it was hot. I was in Fort Jackson, child, and I was there in August. It was hot. But when you think about that, you go in with this certain expectation. But one thing I learned in basic training that they really just they instilled discipline. That was really the end result of a lot of that. All of the routines and the repetition and the get up at this time, a lot of that was instilling a level of discipline that some soldiers, even myself, did not have before we even went.
That's
You
why I
know what I'm
went.
saying? Uh,
It's like I'm messing my life up. I need to get it together.
it's instilling a level of discipline. And a lot of the time, people couldn't even make it through because they just couldn't get out of that mindset that they were in. And so they just stayed stuck. So that was that piece there. I love that you tied that back to basic training because that was a major transition. And so next thing. when I think about the wilderness, I always think about like the process that butterflies go through because they don't just
Mm,
become a butterfly, right? They're a caterpillar first, and then they're going into the cocoon. And that time in the cocoon, it's just them by themselves. But if we're just being tying it back to us, it's us and God in that space. There's nobody else in the cocoon with the caterpillar. This
mhm.
caterpillar is being refined and turned into something completely different, completely beautiful, something that they weren't before because they were on the ground before. They're about to break out flying
Yeah,
when they get out of this cocoon. So that I had to make that shift and tie it back to, man, like this period of transformation is so beautiful. And then the third thing, because it's always fresh on my mind, is that we often have this we think that we're just supposed to automatically jump into everything, like because I want to be a mindset coach, or because I want to be a life coach, because I want to do this or that. We think just because we prayed for it and we really 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 we want to do it, that we could just jump out and do it, but we're not ready for it.
yeah,
So, like, whenever we go into the wilderness and we actually ask God about it, it's just like, yeah, let me process you first. Let me make sure that you're going to be ready for what you're asking for. Because a lot of the time, we're not ready for what we're asking for. I say a lot, it's most, it's all the
just running
time.
our mouth.
We're not ready. And during my transition from people pleaser to boundaries, I also stepped into a new career path. And because I was such a giver, 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 I probably wouldn't have been ready for that if I didn't have boundaries. Because that means I would have been giving now. Now that I have more to give, I'm going to be giving more to people who don't even deserve it. Once I transitioned to that new role, I didn't have time because it wasn't just people entitled to money. I had people entitled to my time. Well, I
Yeah,
used to talk to you every single day. You don't talk to me anymore. And then here I am feeling guilty because you're right, I don't talk to you because I'm busy. But why do I feel bad because of something that I'm doing that's growing me?
yeah,
So like I just think that it has to be a mindset shift, and it has to be a time where we're willing to go into the wilderness. It
yeah,
has to be a time where it's just like a lot of the time it feels like it's unexpected. But in my mind, it's a choice because I could have definitely resisted and said, no, I'm gonna be a people pleaser all my life. People pleaser say,
yeah.
what? Like I'll be y'all mascot. Like it would have been like that. Let me
Not the
put my
mascot
face.
child.
I would have been if I didn't decide to go into the wilderness and make that change within myself. Like
Yeah,
if I would have stayed stuck, it's an intentional act of, yes, I want to change. Yes, I am tired of being here. Yes, this does not feel good, but I'm going to continue pressing forward anyway. And if that means I got to lose people along the way, bye.
yeah,
If it costs my peace and my happiness and my inner joy, I don't want it. So if I have to go and be by myself and with just God, I'm gonna have to do it. That's my mindset now. Because
yeah.
before, baby, it was, now
Why
why
I
you
don't
gonna
want
put
to see
me
my
by myself?
friends? Uh-huh.
I
That's so good.
remember that. It's crazy, but I could keep running it because it immediately thought the thought was that it's a mindset shift
Yeah.
all the time, all the time, all the time. Ooh,
I
child.
think that you can be in the wilderness and not experience the mindset shift also. So
Mm,
we don't get to choose when and how long we go into the wilderness. That's not up to us, it's up to God. And I think, believe it or not, like everybody's gonna go through these seasons, right? But I think that how we spend that time in the wilderness and what we cling to is what determines whether or not we see that elevation after the season.
ooh, come
Um,
on.
because a lot of stuff has to fall off you. Like right now, I'm working through some things that I can feel that stuff that used to fly before, it don't fly no more in my life. Like not because I don't want to do it, but because it's making it a lot harder to be in the space that I'm in now.
Yeah.
I think back in basic training, like the people that were smokers, there's no smoking when you're in basic training. They don't
Ooh.
let you go out and have your cigarette. So just imagine somebody who has an addiction to nicotine or whatever. And at the time before I went in, I was smoking weed. So one of the reasons I also went was because I was doing it a lot. And I was like, This is not the life that I want for myself, and I need to get it together. But the people that went in that would smoke cigarettes daily, like by the hour, there was no what 3-step or 12-step program. There was no patch. There was no nothing. You just can't do it because when you come out of here, your new lifestyle is that you run at least 3 times a week. If you're in a decent
Mm-hmm.
unit, shout out to First Cab, you're gonna run.
You running.
But there are people who, while they were in basic training, of course, they let go of the habit because they didn't have a choice. But then as soon as they came out, right back to smoking. Not because your body needs it anymore, because you've been in here long enough
Yep.
where it's not an addiction anymore. This is something that you're choosing. So I think that even the people that went in because maybe they were always getting in trouble and, you know, let me come in here so that I don't end up going to prison. I know a lot of people like that. So that's one of the things that I do like that you can do. You still end up being in trouble as soon as you come out of basic training. I really think, like you said, you go into it, but it's a choice. Like even with working out, I can go through the motions of working out, or if I really am intentional about building muscle, I'm going to go through the movement properly, or I'm going to go slow with the movement to make sure that I'm building muscle rather than just going through it. And so for us in the wilderness, the temptations are going to be there to resort to a relationship, sex, drugs, whatever our vices are, food, whatever the case may be. It is when we resist it and use that time wisely that we gain what we need for where we're going. But you can
Ooh.
be in the wilderness and suffering for a whole year and not gain anything from it. And that's what I think is the most scary. And personally, for me, recently, that was my prayer to God. Like, I know I'm being stubborn with some stuff and it's taking me some time, but like, please don't give up on me. I don't want to get to the end of this and regret that I didn't give it my all or that I didn't allow you to refine or purge certain things in me. Like, it's starting to come to the head, the things that are an idol in my life, the things that I need you, girl, you got to deal with this. Like, it's here.
Yeah.
It's very apparent that it's an issue for you. You're going to have to do something with this. And it's up to us what we choose to do with that information. Some of the stuff that comes out of you when you're in the wilderness, I heard a quote where somebody said, if you want to know who someone is, watch what they do when they don't get what they want.
Ooh. Come on.
How do we act when we don't get what we want? Who are we when we don't get what we want? Are we jealous of everybody that has it? Are we tearing down the other people that have it? Are we complainers? How do we act when we don't get what we want? And that thing, whatever that is, that's probably the very thing that God is trying to get out of you before you go into the next place.
Oh my goodness. Having tantrums. Okay.
As a grown woman, I have caught myself in the middle of literally having a tantrum.
But you caught it though. That makes
Girl, I remember
that
talking to
makes a
my mama
difference.
and she was like, Tierra, blah, blah, blah. And she was giving me some good wisdom. And I'm like, I'm trying to tell you my life is over and you're trying to tell me that it's not. You're not listening to me. Like a kid.
It
Girl.
it be like that. But one thing that I'm thankful for is that that shows you from a different perspective that that's that person's true colors too. I had to learn that.
It shows you
Whenever
that your own true colors.
exactly. From both sides. It's going to
Yes.
show you you. Like and that's the one thing that I haven't I can't I was going to say enjoy, but the wilderness was not fun.
At
It
all.
wasn't fun. But as far as lessons, that's the one thing that I was very thankful to get out of the wilderness is that God was able and still continues to show me me. And that's only if I'm opening my eyes to that. Because as we keep saying on this episode, y'all, it's a choice. You know
Yeah.
what? It's not even just this episode. I think everything that we talk about, we're going to always say it's a choice. You get to
Yeah.
choose if you want to live your life with God. Like you get to choose if you want to change those negative narratives and change your life, if you want to implement boundaries, because we do get to choose that. Like, we don't even understand that it's a choice. And once that was the realization that I get to choose, that I have the opportunity to wake up daily and choose this or that, right or left, up or down, whatever, it was a game changer for me. So it is an intentional thing. And the other piece of it too is that what you were saying, there's times where you spend the whole year or so, or however long that God has you in the wilderness, and you still come out and do the exact same thing that He was trying to process out of you.
Because He's not gonna force you.
That's it. It's not going to be a force. And even, oh my goodness, even thinking about me trying to help others and pull them up, I used to get so frustrated because I'm just like, you know, that what you're doing is trash. Or you're complaining about the same things. You don't want to make any changes. You want to do the exact same thing. And I used to get so frustrated because the people just didn't want to. And then I realized it's not up to me. It's not up to me to make these changes for you. You have to want to make the change. You have to want to say, I am sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I want something different. That is the same in the wilderness. We have to choose that. So the support system is great. But if you're not going to actually do the work, and what good is it going to be? Like,
Yeah,
if you're not going to take the wilderness serious and actually say, like, this is a time that I'm supposed to be in a process. And then one thing to understand about the wilderness too is that have grace with yourself. Because I know I'm saying, like, oh, people don't come out change, and maybe this just hard for them. That could be the case too. So have grace with yourself if you fall back into those ways. But not only have grace and compassion, but just really look at self and say, like, what areas am I supposed to, what more work is there? What more
yeah,
am I supposed to be doing? And take it serious. If you're playing about your growth, you're not going to grow. If
yeah.
you're playing games, crackhead games in the wilderness,
You gonna win some
you're going
crackhead prizes. You will.
it it's going to come out that way. And then we're going to
Yeah,
be mad and frustrated because we spent all this time in the wilderness for nothing to come out of it.
yeah.
You know, like, I don't want to be on here chastising anybody. I just think because I've had to walk through it, and there's times that I play in the wilderness too, and I didn't take it serious.
Definitely. And I think the reason why we're there in the first place is because if we had the discipline to be all that God is calling us to be, it's not an easy standard to meet, right?
No,
It's not an easy standard at all. And I think that God brings us through those seasons to say, okay, you don't have to be all the things at one time because you literally just don't have the ability to be. But I
no,
think the wilderness is more so about your heart posture. Like, if you're just hanging on to something and you're walking in pride and this is just me and this is just who I am and stuff, like, the wilderness is to kind of like try to turn that stony heart into flesh. Like, it's trying to, like, God's trying to get in there and like show you your need for him. The reason why we're going through the wilderness is because we don't have the ability, we don't have the discipline to do certain things ourselves. And doing things out of our own strength goes directly against the point of having a relationship with God. There are things that while I'm in this wilderness, just my willingness to say, God, I fell down again, like, help me. Like, I'm really trying, but this thing has a hold on me. I think the wilderness is a time where God does take some of those things away. I I'm thinking back to the wilderness that I was in before. There are certain things that were a burden for me, that were difficult for me, that now it's not an issue because at that time those things were surrendered. It is a time for you to be feel like you at rock bottom, because when you at rock bottom, like people say, you can't look nowhere but up. I can't get myself up out of this pit. Like, I need something greater than me, something that has more power and strength than me to get me out of it. So we're not relying on ourselves to be these disciplined people when we're in the wilderness. It is your heart posture, and the Holy Spirit is the person that helps us the rest of the way that we can't go. Like, he fills in that gap. And I think at some point when you're in the wilderness, some of the things that you're struggling with, if you continue to seek God's face and try to break some of those things and just keep going back to God, I do think that walking into the next season, you get grace, like to either not do it anymore or it won't even be a struggle anymore. I think that those things break off in the wilderness, at least in my experience, but you just can't give up. And when I say give up, it's not all about striving to do the right thing. It's about getting before God in humility. He loves when we're humble. Like he's drawn to humility, saying, God, I literally cannot do this without you. I need you to help me because if you leave it up to me, I'm going to mess it up. And we even see throughout the Bible, the people that God used, they weren't perfect. They were
Mm,
still messing up. But that humility, that going back to God, that God, when David said, against you and you alone have I sinned. That's the posture. And that's the main part of what the wilderness is for, I believe. More than about what you do, where is your heart? Do you recognize that you need God? Because in this wilderness, I recognize, girl, you ain't nothing without him. And don't you ever walk out this door thinking you something without him.
mm.
We're not. So it's not gonna happen in your own strength. To Bree's point about there is no condemnation in this conversation. It's, do you recognize that you need God to walk through whatever it is that you're struggling with in the wilderness? It's not even about the promised land. That's what I've had to come to terms with. I keep looking at, well, I know that God said I was going to have her do this. So if I can just get through this, I'm going to get to that. No, it's, God, I'm willing to let you break me if that's what it's going to take for me to be who you called me to be. Even when I'm complaining, break me. That's what you
Yeah.
come back to. It's the humility that he's after because he can do something with that. It's not supposed to be in your own strength.
I think that's where we get stuck. We just think, especially if you're the strong friend, strong mom, strong anybody, you are conditioned and you're wired to think that you're supposed to do it all on your own.
Mm-mm.
Guilty. That was where I experienced that wilderness because I am the strong friend. I literally thought I can't go and lean on anybody else and tell them I need help. God, I can't come to you and tell you that I really, really need your guidance right now. I'm supposed to be strong. I'm supposed to carry the load. It's a limiting belief by all means. It's definitely a limiting belief, but it's definitely understanding that you don't have to do it by yourself. And so what you were saying, T, it's not about being perfect. It's not about performing and pretending. Like when you go in the wilderness, you have to be raw. And I mean, like, take off all of the pride that you were just talking about, take off all of the extra baggage. Like, that is the time to begin unpacking. That is the time to just really open up. Ooh, am I getting emotional?
No,
Oh,
I am
okay.
too. I
Um,
am too.
okay, hold on.
Go ahead.
The life here. Okay, so
Be
that is
real
the
refined. Come on.
oh, that is the time to go to him with everything. Everything. Your every God, show me me. Show me where I need to be working on these areas. See, I'm about to mess up my makeup. That's the time. So whenever you go into that place, take it all. Give it all. That was my struggle. I kept feeling like I can't give this all to you because I don't even trust you enough to give it to you. Trust issues, control issues.
Control.
Like when you go into that place, y'all have to understand that that is the time where you just have to lay it all out. Don't go in there thinking that, oh, he's gonna judge me. It's about to be, you're about to talk bad about me when I'm done praying to you, God. Like it's not even that. That was the time. So I just want to encourage y'all to take all of it, take everything into the wilderness so that you're not, so that you continue to grow. Because as I talk about that caterpillar, the caterpillar took everything, whole body up in there.
Girl.
So it's so important that you just come open and come ready and take off the judgment like that for me.
The judgment
Like
of yourself.
Exactly. That's what I mean. Judgment of self. Because we're our own worst critic. And what we're gonna do is beat ourselves up even while we're in that lonely place. Not we're not even technically lonely. We have God with us. So even in that place of isolation, I always see those posts about whenever you are wanting to elevate, you have to separate and things like that. I think that's true.
Yeah.
If I want to be a different me, if I want to elevate to a better me, I have to shut off some things. I have to die to some old ways. And I'm still doing that. I'm still learning how to do that.
Yeah.
If I want to be this mindset coach and do all these different things, there's some things I have to continue working on with me. If I want to be this wife, if I want to be this great mom, like all of these things that I continue wanting to be better at, I have to shut off some things. Oh, no
Yeah.
tears fell. I feel great.
If y'all have not picked up on it yet, Bree is the thug of Real Refined Podcast, and I am the crybaby of Real Refined Podcast. You want to see some tears, you look on this side of the screen. If you want to
Oh
see
my God.
somebody thug through some tears, you look over there. Look up, well, that side of the screen.
Child. Ooh, because I'm like, I got cute. Anyway, what were we going to
You
say,
look
T?
beautiful. No, I just pulled up this scripture while you were talking. And this is Paul, who we all know is that's my dog. Paul.
Listen.
I love Paul, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the scripture that I was thinking of, and I wanted to read the full thing in context, he said that he had a thorn in his side. And he said in 2 Corinthians 12, starting at verse 8, he says, 3 times I pleaded with the Lord to take it away from me. But he said, my grace is sufficient for you. This is the part that I wanted to get to. For my power is made perfect in weakness.
Mm.
And then Paul goes on to say, therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, and in difficulty. For when I am weak, then I am strong. And when you were talking, that's what I kept. My power is made perfect in weakness. I think even when people are going through hard times, it's a few years ago that I stopped praying for their strength, because as long as you're being strong, you don't activate God's strength. Then if you want to keep being strong, you're going to have to keep being strong. I
Yeah.
think that when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, if with nobody else, with God, that is when we give way for him to come in and step in and say, I got you. That's just like in the natural with our friends. When you're known as the strong friend, right? People don't know that you need help. You don't give room for anybody to help you if you're boasting in your strengths. Other people can help you when they see that there's a need, when there's a request, you know what I'm saying? Like when they can see that there's a weakness, that's what invites people in to help. And it's the same thing with God. A lot of us, um, we are extremely prideful. I've even found with myself here recently, me trying to make things happen and figure these things out, it had gotten to a point where, and even now, I don't sleep as well as I used to. It's taken me a long time to fall asleep. And when I wake up in the morning, my brain is already going and thinking about, I have to
Yep.
do this. I have to consider that. What am I going to do about this? That was because those things were not surrendered to God. I was trying to figure it out in my own strength. But when I give it to him, he got to figure it out. He has to work it out. I just have to respond and be available for however he wants me to be a part of that. And so I think that's a big part of the wilderness as well. And this is like literally got the revelation this in the last few days, and even as we're talking about it, we don't have to perform for God. Like, it's not about what we're doing. Where is your heart? And when you give your heart to him, you're going to do the thing anyway. You're going to want to please him anyway. But it's about, does she trust me enough to even ask me?
Yeah.
Does she trust me enough to even see what I think or ask what I think or how I want her to proceed before she even starts to worry? before things start falling apart. And I can admit that um, I've been in that place at one time, but over time, you definitely get away from depending on God as much as we need to. Us submitting those things to God is what activates our help. If you don't ask Him for help, okay, you still gonna go through this wilderness. You're still gonna go through whatever is ordained and planned out for your life. You're still gonna be under attack of the enemy in some regards. You're still gonna have to go through my testing.
Yeah.
It's up to you if you want to actually ask me for help.
Yeah. I think that's the hard part. And I think also we as the strong friends continue to want to be strong because of the stigma behind being weak. You're weak, you're weak minded, you're this. Like when people put that out into the atmosphere, and that's why I live by Romans 12 and 2, because if I continue to conform to the whole stigma of being weak, if I was to continue down that path, so I should say, um, I wouldn't be where I am right now. Because it took a lot of strength to come even talk to you like, look, I'm struggling spiritually. Can you help? Can you do
Yeah,
Bible study? Can you? That was the first leap for me.
yeah,
Because even like being a little baby in Christ back then, I still felt like I can't go tell anybody that I'm still afraid to pray out loud. And I struggle with that still. Like
we gonna get you up out of that.
that's still a struggle. But I only say that because I don't feel bad for saying it. I don't feel like there's judgment in that I am weak because I can admit to my weaknesses.
Yeah,
Because baby, a few years ago, no, you couldn't tell me. I'm good, I'm strong.
yeah,
And for me, having the right support system really helped. So at that time of transition in my life, child, I had you and my mama and a few others, I will say. But like during that time of transition, spiritually, I needed someone stronger than me in that area. And you always directed me back to God. You need to pray about it. And I no longer feel like that shame anymore. So uh it's one of those things too, especially as we're getting ready to wrap up, that I want to tell everybody is that because I struggle with this, is that we micromanage God too much. And when you think about micromanaging, when a person is micromanaging their staff or whoever, it's due to a lack of trust. We micromanage because we do not trust. That's exactly why micromanagers be micromanaging. They
yeah,
don't trust that you're going to execute. They don't trust you're going to do the job that you told them to do. They don't trust that you're going to be whoever you said you're going to be, like. And then we take it back with God. We don't fully trust that he's going to do all the things that he we know he can do,
yeah,
but we do not trust. We don't even have the faith to believe that it's going to happen or it's already done. Like that is where we get stuck. And
yeah.
I only say that because baby, I have been in that. Micromanager. No more.
A recovering
I said
micromanager.
I said no more.
Okay.
Because when you give up that control and you really release, now it's a struggle. Because that goes back to a root of like perfectionism. There's just so many different roots, and getting to the root is important. But I just wanted to say, as we're getting ready to close out, is that we just have to stop trying to micromanage God. That means we have to stop trying to pick and choose when the wilderness is going to start, when it's going to end, what's going to happen in the wilderness, what we're going to get out of it. But we do have to choose to be open and humble when we
Yeah.
enter. Passing the mic to you, T. What you got?
Um, I mean, you just closed it out beautifully. The only thing that I can also encourage other people to do as well, because like I said, I'm in a wilderness season right now as well. And I'm actually looking forward to the testimony that's going to come out of this season.
Yep.
Um, Continue to put yourself in remembrance of who God is. It's very easy to allow your circumstances to tell you who God is,
Yeah.
because when you don't see him moving in certain regards, you start to think that he's not who he says he is. And he literally cannot lie. Like if you Literally, your mama can lie, your daddy can lie, your pastor can lie, your friend, your best friend can lie, your spouse can. God cannot lie. Like it's not possible. Um, and so reading the word, meditating on the word is not to do him a favor. It is to keep us reminded of God's character, of his nature. He's a great father. He does not abandon his children. Even if you feel like you don't hear him, he is still there. Um, and whatever development that he intends to do with us in this season, it is going to be a testimony on the other side of it. And we don't want to be like the Israelites who did not make good use of their time in the wilderness. If we have to be here, just like we were in basic training, if I have to be here, let me go on ahead and get fine and go on ahead and run this little 3 mile, 6 mile, 10 mile, whatever thing we doing today, because instead of, falling out and just walking, since I have to be here,
Yeah.
that's just like when people are in prison. It's not supposed to be what we've seen it to be. It's supposed to be time to sit down and regroup. So when you get ready to go back outside, you don't commit a crime again. Some people make use of that time by getting a degree, by, finding some level of spirituality. Other people don't make use of the time. We have a choice to make. We have a choice to make. Since you're here, since we're here, what you gonna do?
Mm,
And I'm gonna see y'all on the other side.
that's an amazing closing question. What are you going to do?
What you gonna do?
Because you have a choice. So, man, see, y'all almost made me cry. I'm going to say T. Almost made me cry. Or did I almost make me cry? Somebody
You were
almost made me.
talking. You were the only person talking when those tears started right now.
Woo! Y'all, thank you for supporting us. Thank you for being in the Real Refined fam. Thank you for tapping into this conversation. It's always real. And until next time, because we'll be back with more.
We love y'all.
Bye.
Bye.